Okay, what we're going to have a look at now is a two-part essay question. If you've seen my channel before, I've done a video or two about these question types. So basically, you've just got two questions to answer, which is why it's got a two-part question. There's a particular structure that we can use. I'll show you it here. Let me just get this up and let's have a look. So, as you see, well, as you know, or as you should know by now, for every question type, regardless of the essay, sentence one, you need to paraphrase and restate the question according to some blah 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 blah. Okay, now sentence two, sentence three in your introduction, if it asks you to express an opinion, you do so. If it's a two-part one, though, you have to have an outline, a sentence that basically briefly answers what the questions are. So you briefly answer both of the questions. So in this example here, which we're going to have a look at in a moment, using a student essay and one that I wrote. So it's a two-part question. Happiness is considered very important in life. So question one, why is it difficult to define? Question two, what factors are important in achieving happiness? So what you do for the introduction, for sentence one, you paraphrase the question or topic. Then sentence two, you briefly mention what you're going to be talking about in your body paragraph. So if we take a look at this one here. So for many people, being happy is the most important part of their lives. However, what happiness is exactly is very difficult to define, as it means many things to many people. Then we've got to answer in brief the two questions. So why is it difficult to define? So I've briefly answered it. It's very difficult to define, as it means many different things to many different people. So the second question, which I have to briefly answer, is what factors do I think are important? So my personal view is that having a certain amount of money to do the things that you want to do, and being in good health to enjoy them, are equally of importance. So I've basically said happiness is very difficult to define, because it means many different things depending on who you are, where you stand, etc. And the second question, what factors do I think are important? I've said having having some money and being healthy. These are two equally important things. So for the structure, for paragraph 2 and 3, you briefly answer the question. It's difficult to define because many different people think different things, etc. Sentence 2, explain it. Develop, extend your explanation. And then sentence 4, we need a specific example. So the same for paragraph 2. Well, paragraph 3, the main body, paragraph 2. Again, answer the second question in brief. In my view, being healthy and having some cash are the most important things. Then explain why, extend that, and give an example. Now, if you can extend it with a couple of sentences, that is better than just having a single sentence. It depends on the question and what you can think of. Now, the criteria. Oops, I'll show you. You've probably seen it before. Writing band descriptors. me open this. Okay, yeah. So, not to repeat myself, but I probably will. So to get at least a 7, right, you need a logical organization of information and ideas. But what I refer to here in the using the structure there is we need to have a progression, a clear progress, from sentence to sentence. So this is the main idea, this is what it means, this explains it a little bit more. Here's an example. 1, 2, 3, 4. If, so again, you need a clear progression just to achieve a 6. This is obviously for the cohesion and the coherence part. So, progress. Every sentence needs to move the argument along a little bit further. Yeah, so, what does this look like in practice then? Well, let's have a look at the example. So, the structure, as we said, you paraphrase the question, you briefly answer both of the questions, what and how, who, what, why, where, when. Answer the question in brief, explain, develop it, an example, same for paragraph 2, and then at the end, a single sentence that basically gives a summary. In conclusion, although some people believe that although some people believe that happiness is very important, I think it's very difficult to say what that is. And if you can, from a personal view, I believe that health and money are the 2 important factors. So that's my 2 main ideas. So you're basically saying the same things 3 separate times. You paraphrase, you briefly answer the questions, you expand on your answer for the first question, expand on your answer for the second question. At the end, you restate. You say, okay, as I've said, this is the topic again, and these are the 2 answers. Obviously, you have to paraphrase it. So you're showing the examiner a range of different language and vocabulary. So let's have a look at my example, and then we'll take a look at a student example. So now, I have to say this is a very difficult question. It's such an abstract. I mean, it's a proper question. It's an IELTS essay question, but it's such an abstract question. It's very difficult to write an essay and to think of some good, clear, specific ideas, specific reasons, specific examples. Now, for the task achievement, for the task achievement criteria, I've explained this in other videos. Sorry, you have to have fully extended, well-supported ideas. So it's about the quality of your ideas. So main idea, give a reason and an example. Present, extend, and support your main ideas. Well, this particular question was quite hard. As I say, it's such an abstract question. But I think I got away with it, really. So let's take a look. Ooh, stop. Okay, so introduction then. For many people, being happy is the most important part of their lives. However, what this happiness is exactly is very difficult to define, as it means many things to many people. My personal view is that having a certain amount of money to do the things you want to do and being in good health to enjoy them are equally of importance in happiness terms. Okay, so that's not bad. Now, so why is it difficult to define? This is the question that we have to answer here. So we have to move it on. So we have a very short sentence for sentence number 1. The some call it a thesis, statement, a topic sentence, a main idea. So you briefly answer the question as you have done here in the introduction. So, as happiness is a feeling and or a concept, it is therefore impossible to offer a workable definition. That is to say, it might be achieved by having something such as money, or by a lack of something such as poverty. So you can see every sentence needs to move it on. We want to avoid repetition, in other words. Everything needs to move, even if it's just a little bit, everything needs to move on, sentence by sentence. So, according to whichever culture or society you belong to, the meaning may be totally at odds with that of another culture. So, I'm basically saying, as I mentioned here, it means many different things to different people. Now, I had to make up an example. Now, it wasn't too difficult here. And now, as I've mentioned before, the IELTS is not a test of the truth. So you can, and well, perhaps I shouldn't say that you ought to, but you can certainly make up some examples if it better supports your ideas. So, for example, a recent survey by the University of Moscow in 2014 showed 90% of Muscovites interviewed said that having money was the most important thing in life. Now, I have to make a contrast here, because I said it's different for different cultures. However, a similar survey by the University of Beijing said that for 80% of Beijingers, having a harmonious family and society were the most significant factors for happiness. So, that's not too bad, We have a reasonable example there that shows how it's different. So therefore, it's different to say exactly what it is. I mean, because that's the question. Why is it difficult to define? So the second part is what factors? What factors are important to achieve this? So as I've said, money and good health. So we have to expand on it. Now, my personal view is that money and a good health are the twin factors for being happy. So, a very short sentence to introduce your main idea. You need to be fit and healthy, and you need some cash, and these are the two important things. Now, again, we've got to move the argument along sentence by sentence, right? So, money is important to buy things you need and want, and can free you from the anxiety that poverty can bring. Whereas being healthy is equally important as being a billionaire is no good if you cannot physically take advantage of the opportunities that money can buy. Now, I had to make an example up. I had to think. I'm not sure if this is a very good one, but again, depending on what the topic is, what the the question is, you might be struggling, but you've got to do the best that you can, essentially. So, for example, when Steve Jobs, the billionaire founder of Apple, was living out his last days, he said in an interview that although money was important, he would gladly trade his fortune for having his life and health again. Now, maybe Steve, it sounds, something like he might have said, I'm not quite sure, but Examiner is not going to go on to Google and see what Steve Jobs actually said. You know, it's plausible and credible. Now that's the only thing that counts when you're making up an example. If it's a really obviously stupid one, then examiners might not, you know, be too pleased about that. So what do we do now? We need to conclude. So we have to mention the topic again and the two ideas. So in conclusion, despite the fact that happiness is claimed by so many to be an important part of life, which is that part, the concept is notoriously hard to quantify and define. In my opinion, money and a healthy life are intertwined as the two essential components of happiness. So that's not too bad. Okay. Now, as I say, this was a difficult question, somewhat abstract, so you have to use a bit of imagination, but it's not bad. Now, let's have a look at the student essay, and we'll make a comparison. So, sentence one, you paraphrase the question. It's commonly believed that happiness plays an important role in our lives. Okay, that's not bad. He's paraphrased that well. Okay, there are a lot of factors which are included in happiness. Okay, all right. In my opinion, this feeling is the same for... Now, this is slightly contradictory because he says, in my opinion, this feeling is the same for everyone. But then we will see the reasons why this feeling means a different for somebody. So it's the examiner reading this essay. Okay, sentence one, it's paraphrased. The outline sentence doesn't really outline. It doesn't really say what the two ideas are. And then you've got contradictory sentence. So, okay. So, on the one hand, now, I don't know why it actually says this, because we're not making a comparison. We're not doing a discuss both views essay where you look at one hand, this is one view, on the other hand, this is the second view. We have to briefly answer the two questions. Why is it difficult, and what factors are important? So, on the one hand, it is considered by some that people feel happy when they are comfortable with themselves. In particular, in professional, well, we should have an article in the professional sphere. Scientist and economist, well, because we're talking about abstract nouns, they should be pluralized, can differ from each other not only by occupation but also by life goals. So, what we want to know here is, why is it difficult to make a definition of happiness? I think that professional happiness is to attain something in your specialization. Okay, that is why the to-do lists on making yourself happy are different from sphere to sphere. Well, it's kind of offering a definition of happiness, and some people feel happy when they're comfortable. The actual question is why. It's not asking you what happiness is. It isn't asking that. It's asking, why is it so difficult to offer a definition of what happiness actually means? So that's what you would need to talk about in paragraph 2. As in the example here, well, I say, well, it's difficult to offer a definition because it could mean something that you have, or it could be something that you don't have, such as poverty. I also say, you know, depending on whichever culture, that meaning may be different, and then I give an example. So this wouldn't quite work as a paragraph, because it doesn't really address the question of why is happiness difficult to define and quantify. and we don't have a clear example. Now, in paragraph 3, we do, so that's good. But here, paragraph 2, okay. So now, on the other hand, now, we would only use these expressions if it was a discuss both views essay, where you're showing this is one view, this is a second view, but it's not that kind of a question type. So what we need is we want to find out what factors does the author think are important in achieving happiness. So on the other hand, some people believe that celebrities, well, why is it talking about them, are happy because they're rich and famous. I totally disagree, because happiness does not correlate with goods. Well, it's not asking you what you think it isn't. It's asking what do you think is important. So it's a bit like the to what extent kind of questions, where it says, to what extent do you agree or disagree with a statement? Yeah. So you don't have to show an opposite view for this question type. It's asking you, why is it difficult? It doesn't want you to say, some people think it's difficult because of this and some people think it's difficult because of that. For the second one, some people think these are factors, other people think these are the factors. It's asking, just give me one aside. So, ordinary people often happier than rich ones because the first ones appreciate of all they have. Because what? Because the first ones, because the first people, because the ordinary people appreciate all they have. Well, we can replace that with a pronoun. Ordinary people are often happier than rich ones or rich people because they, referring to ordinary people, often appreciate all they have. So, an example: the University of Harvard research 20% famous people are in depression. They have literally everything but do not appreciate it. Being grateful, they've got the character trait. By the FBI in the UK. Well, the FBI is not in the UK, but still. And then we've got a different idea. Trust, relate. Now, what the examiners do not want you to do in a paragraph is to put a list of ideas. Now, going back to the criteria, right? So again, where is it? Clear central topic in every paragraph. Okay. Now, the reason why you only want one is because you have to present, extend, and support your main ideas. Now, every essay says, write 250 words and give reasons and examples based on your own experience and knowledge, etc. Right? So, if you've got more than one idea, you cannot sufficiently develop it in terms of, this logic, the coherence. This leads to this, leads to this, leads to that. So that's one of the reasons why people don't get very good scores for the cohesion, coherence, and the task achievement part, because basically they just put a couple of different things, a list of ideas, 2 or 3, but they don't develop them in a sufficient way as the criteria is asking for. So this wouldn't really, so we have an example, but this would be better. Now, again, this is like trying to discuss both views, which you don't really actually need. I would just do as I did here. I think that the factors are money and good health, and then say why. Because it's important to buy things. If you're healthy, you can take advantage of it, and then an example. So this kind of talks about what some people think, but we don't really care what some people think. We want to know what you think. happiness does not correlate. Well, what does it correlate with? So, you know, this is basically saying that money does not equal a happiness. Well, it's not asking you what factors are not important. It's asking you what factors are important. So it's like kind of a negative inversion of what you should have said. You know, and then so you know, it's not bad, but it doesn't really address quite what the question is. It doesn't sufficiently develop it. This leading to this, leading to this, and a clear example. So, in conclusion, I'd like to emphasize that happiness is a feeling inside us. Okay. We can rich what we can have. We can have rich comfortable relationships with close relatives. Well, that right now, it's not strictly a new idea because it's mentioned in passing. Trust, you know, I mean, I don't know, trust. You're not supposed to introduce new ideas, and this is like a throwaway line and idea, but it doesn't really develop itself or extend itself. It just says, oh, and also another example says that. Okay, so what you, I, whoever should have done is just gone with one idea, right? It's either trust or it's having money or good health or etc. Just having one idea and then explain that. Bum, 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 bum. Not having a couple of different things that's not properly developed. I suppose, right, so this conclusion doesn't really conclude. So it's not too bad, but in the introduction, we need an outline sentence. How do you intend to briefly answer, or answer in, answer in brief the two questions? Then we need one main idea for question one. Why is it difficult? And then question two, what factors? I think that this is a factor. It's a factor because here's the reason why it's a factor. For example, it's a factor because 80% of people said blah, 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 blah. Then at the end, in conclusion, according to many, happiness is a major part of our lives. So you paraphrase the question. It's difficult to say what this is because nobody knows. And speaking personally, I think it's related to family happiness, say, and that would do. So, bit of work on structure and organisation, and you won't go far amiss. Okay, so I'm going to post this on. So this is going on to YouTube, and I'm going to put the files onto my blog. So depending on the way you see it, it's either on my channel on YouTube or it's on my blog, prepareielts.com. If you've got any, whoever, if anybody sees this and they have some questions, they can write to me at the following address. Okay, great. I hope that's useful.